Why does seeing someone else's best life make you feel like you failed at your own? It's not jealousy. It's not because you are ungrateful, and it's certainly not because you are broken. It's a psychological weapon, and whether you realize it or not, it is pointed right at you. We are living through a strange paradox in human history. We have never been more connected, yet we have arguably never felt more inadequate. You wake up, you reach for your phone, and before your feet even touch the floor, you are bombarded with 1,000 images of what your life isn't. You see the perfect morning routine, the spotless kitchen, the career milestone, the engagement ring, the vacation that looks like it was color graded by a cinema team. And in that split second, a quiet, corrosive thought takes root in your mind. Why am I not there? What am I doing wrong? It's a question that haunts millions of us, a collective anxiety that hums beneath the surface of our digital lives. But here is the truth that the screen will never tell you. You are not looking at reality. You are looking at a performance. And the reason you feel bad isn't because your life is lacking. It's because the machinery of social media is engineered, specifically and scientifically, to trigger a glitch in your evolutionary biology. Let's peel back the layers of this. To understand why we feel this crushing weight of comparison, we have to look at how our brains are wired. For thousands of years, comparison was a survival mechanism. If you were a hunter-gatherer living in a tribe of 50 people, it was crucial to know where you stood. You needed to know who was the best hunter, who was the most trusted leader, who had the most resources. Comparing yourself to others helped you gauge your safety and your standing in the hierarchy. It was a tool for survival. If you saw someone doing better, it was a signal to improve, to learn, or to align yourself with them. But here is the critical difference. Back then, you were comparing yourself to maybe 30 or 40 other people. And you saw them in their entirety. You saw the great hunter when he failed. You saw the leader when he was sick. You saw the struggle alongside the success. Today, that survival mechanism is completely overwhelmed. You are no longer comparing yourself to your neighbor or your cousin. You are comparing yourself to a curated database of the top 1% of the human experience, filtered from billions of people around the globe. Your brain, ancient and primal, cannot distinguish between a digital image and a physical reality. When you see an influencer with a perfect body or an entrepreneur with a perfect business, your brain registers that as a peer in your tribe. It signals to you that this is the standard. And because you cannot possibly compete with a highlight reel of a billion people, your brain triggers a stress response. It tells you that you are falling behind, that you are at risk of being left out of the tribe. This is what psychologists call relative deprivation. It doesn't matter how good your life actually is. It doesn't matter if you have a roof over your head, food on your table, and people who love you. If your reference point is an impossible ideal, you will feel deprived. You will feel poor in a castle if everyone else seems to be living in a palace. And this is where the architecture of platforms like Instagram becomes truly insidious. It is not a neutral public square. It is a Skinner box. It is a variable reward system designed to keep you scrolling, and the fuel for that scrolling is often a mix of dopamine and inadequacy. Think about the layout itself. The infinite scroll. There is no stopping point. There is no moment where the app says, "You've seen enough for today, go live your life." And within that bottomless pit, the algorithm learns exactly what makes you stop. And often, what makes us stop is not what makes us happy. It is what triggers us. It is the image that sparks a tiny pang of envy, the video that confirms our insecurities, the post that makes us wonder, what if? The platform rewards the spectacular, the polished, and the extreme. It pushes content that garners the most visceral reaction. Normalcy does not go viral. Contentment does not get engagement. A photo of a messy living room with a caption about having an average day does not stimulate the algorithm. So, we are fed a diet of hyperreality. We see relationships that look like fairy tales, devoid of the arguments and the silence and the boredom that make up 99% of real love. We see career trajectories that look like rocket ships, hiding the years of uncertainty and failure. We see bodies that have been posed, lit, and edited to impossible proportions. And we consume this, hour after hour, day after day. It is a slow poisoning of our perception of normal. This creates a phenomenon known as the splitting of the self. We begin to cultivate two identities. There is the experienced self, the person who actually lives your life. The person who wakes up tired, who feels uncertain, who has moments of quiet joy and moments of crushing doubt. Then, there is the curated self, the avatar we project to the world. The curated self is always smiling. The curated self is always traveling, eating beautiful food, and succeeding. The tragedy is that we start to believe that the curated self is who we are supposed to be. And when our experienced self inevitably fails to measure up to the image we've created, or the images others have created, we feel a deep sense of shame. We feel like imposters in our own lives. We start to view our lives not as an experience to be felt, but as content to be captured. Have you ever noticed that you can't just enjoy a sunset anymore? You have to capture it. You have to frame it. You have to filter it. If a moment happens and it isn't posted, there is a lingering anxiety that it was wasted. This is the theft of the present moment. We are trading the richness of the now for the validation of the later. We are trading the memory for the metric. And the cruel irony is that the more we perform happiness for others, the less we actually feel it ourselves. The effort it takes to maintain the illusion drains the energy we need to actually build a life we love. There is a specific type of envy that social media breeds. Psychologists distinguish between benign envy and malicious envy. Benign envy is when you see someone succeed and you feel inspired. You think, if they can do it, I can do it too. It motivates you. Malicious envy is different. It's that sinking feeling in your gut. It's the feeling that their success somehow diminishes yours. It's the resentment that comes from feeling like the world is unfair. Social media is a breeding ground for malicious envy because it removes the context of struggle. When you see the result without the process, it looks like magic. It looks like some people are just chosen and you are not. You don't see the discipline, the sacrifice, the luck, or the help they had. You just see the shiny outcome. And it makes your own struggles feel not like a necessary part of the journey, but like evidence of your inadequacy. Furthermore, we have to talk about the metricization of human value. Before social media, social standing was ambiguous. Now, human worth is quantified. Likes, followers, views, comments. These are not just numbers. They are psychological signals of approval. When you post something vulnerable and it gets ignored, it feels like a rejection from the tribe. When you see someone else post something trivial and it gets thousands of likes, it reinforces the idea that superficiality is what is valued. We start to tailor our personalities, our hobbies, even our faces, to what the algorithm rewards. We become employees of the platform, working for free, paid only in digital dopamine hits that fade the moment we close the app. But let's go deeper. Let's look at what this silence, this gap between reality and perception, is doing to our ability to connect. True connection requires vulnerability. It requires seeing the messy, unpolished parts of another human being. It requires shared weakness. But social media is an armor. We armor ourselves with filters and witty captions. We present a fortress of success because we are terrified that if we showed our cracks, we would be unlovable. Yet, it is the cracks where the light gets in. It is the cracks where we actually connect with one another. When everyone is pretending to be perfect, everyone feels lonely. We are all standing in a room full of people screaming, "Look at me," while internally whispering, "Does anyone actually see me?" The psychological toll is heaviest on the sensitive, the thinkers, the ones who feel deeply. You might find yourself withdrawing, not because you don't want to connect, but because the cost of connection feels too high. You don't want to play the game anymore. And that withdrawal is often a healthy response to a sick system. It is a sign that your soul is rejecting the artificiality. So, what happens when you decide to step out of this arena? What happens when you stop treating your life as a performance? It is not an immediate fix. In fact, the first feeling is often withdrawal. You feel a phantom limb where your digital validation used to be. You feel the itch to check, to see what you're missing. This is the fear of missing out, or FOMO, kicking in. It's the anxiety that the world is moving on without you. But if you push through that initial discomfort, something profound begins to shift. You enter the realm of JOMO, the joy of missing out. You start to realize that what you were missing out on was mostly noise. You were missing out on the anxiety of comparison. You were missing out on the pressure to perform. And in exchange, you get your life back. You start to reclaim psychological ownership of your experiences. When you go for a walk and don't take a picture, that walk belongs entirely to you. The colors of the leaves, the smell of the rain, the thoughts in your head, they are not content. They are just life. And because they are not shared, they become sacred again. You start to see people differently too. When you meet a friend for coffee and you aren't worried about taking a story of the latte art, you actually look at them. You see the tiredness in their eyes or the genuine spark of excitement. You hear what they are saying, not just waiting for a pause so you can check your notifications. The connection becomes three-dimensional. You realize that the person across from you is not the avatar they present online. They are complex, struggling, hoping, just like you. And the envy dissolves, replaced by empathy. Breaking the cycle of social comparison requires a radical shift in philosophy. It requires accepting that you will never see the full picture of anyone else's life. You must assume, by default, that what you are seeing online is an advertisement, not a documentary. You have to remind yourself, constantly, that everyone suffers. The person with the perfect body has insecurities you can't see. The couple with the perfect travel photos fights about money or trust. The entrepreneur with the millions battles insomnia and loneliness. This isn't wishing ill on them. It's humanizing them. It is leveling the playing field in your own mind. It also requires defining success on your own terms, in a vacuum, away from the noise. If Instagram didn't exist, what would make you happy? If no one could see your car, your clothes, or your vacation, what would you actually choose? When you strip away the audience, you are left with your true desires. And often, those desires are much simpler and much more attainable than the algorithm would have you believe. They are things like peace, creative flow, deep conversation, physical health, and being useful to others. There is a concept called mudita in Buddhism, which means sympathetic joy. It is the ability to be happy for others' happiness without reference to yourself. But mudita is incredibly hard to practice in a digital environment designed to trigger scarcity. To practice it, sometimes you have to remove the stimulus. You have to curate your feed relentlessly. Unfollow the accounts that make you feel small. Mute the people who trigger your insecurities. Your attention is your most valuable currency. Why spend it on things that make you emotionally bankrupt? Protecting your peace is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of wisdom. It is acknowledging that your brain was not built for this level of input. It is an act of rebellion to say, I will not let a commercially engineered algorithm dictate my self-worth. It is deciding that your life is valid simply because you are living it, not because it is being watched. Think about the memories that actually matter to you. The times you laughed so hard your stomach hurt. The moment you felt a rush of love for someone. The feeling of finishing a hard day's work. Were those moments validated by likes? Did they need a caption to be real? No, they were real because you felt them. They are etched into your nervous system, not a server farm. That is where your life actually takes place. The path forward is not necessarily to delete every app and live in a cave. It is to change the relationship from one of dependence to one of utility. Use the tool. Do not let the tool use you. Post if you want to share a memory, but do not post to prove you exist. Scroll to find inspiration, but stop the moment it turns to comparison. Be a conscious observer of your own mind. Notice the shift in your mood. Catch the thought, "I am not enough," and label it for what it is, a glitch. A lie sold to you. Ultimately, the only comparison that is scientifically valid is with yourself. Are you wiser than you were yesterday? Are you kinder? Are you more at peace? These are the metrics that matter, and they are metrics that no algorithm can track. They are invisible, and as we have learned, the most important things in life usually are. There is a quiet dignity in refusing to compete in a game that is rigged. There is a power in being unseen. When you step back from the stage, you realize that the audience was never as important as you thought. You realize that you don't need to be followed to be leading a meaningful life. You don't need to be liked to be loved. So, the next time you find yourself spiraling down the rabbit hole of comparison, remember this. You are comparing your behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reel. It is a mathematically impossible comparison. Put the phone down. Look at the room you are in. Look at your own hands. Breathe the air that is actually around you. This imperfect, messy, quiet, untelevised reality is the only thing that is real. And it is enough. You are enough. Not because 1,000 strangers clicked a heart button, but because you exist. You are here. And your story is happening right now, whether anyone is watching or not. Let the silence return. Let the validation fade. And in that space, you might just find the person you were before the world told you who you had to be.